What's going on, guys? I'm Ross, aka ASAP Flash, and after a while on a hiatus, I'm back. And before I continue, I just want to say I'm stoked to continue making videos the right way this time. Anyway, back to it. With the release of Endgame, it celebrates the culmination of 22 films and over 10 years worth of storytelling, from the novel to the outstanding. And with that kind of storytelling comes great characters with incredible character arcs. In this video, I'll try to go in detail the original six Avengers character arcs. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Our first introduction to the MCU is an arrogant playboy philanthropist billionaire by the name of Tony Stark. Now, I could take a deep dive with the character, starting with his debut film to Endgame, but that wouldn't really make much sense. Much like the other original five members of the team, and generally speaking, his character arc revolves around the relationship of his parents, mainly his father, and to an extent, it reminds me of the kid that has it all except the one thing that's essential: his father's love. There was two turning points for the character in Avengers. When him and Cap were arguing about the worthiness, more on that later, and when he flew into the port of the sky. Since then, he tried to right his wrongs, but not without looking like a villain sometimes, i.e., Age of Ultron or Civil War. His first, when he first created Ultron, he had the right intent, but because he acted so secretly and Ultron turning villainous, like referring to Tony's daddy's issues, it didn't look so good. Similar with his recruitment of Peter, but unlike Ultron, that didn't turn out to be a mistake. That's enough for Tony for now. Let's look up into the Hulk. Unfortunately, unlike his counterpart, he hasn't been given that much of a solo adventure, but the time he's been on screen is a fair substitute. His character arc deals with how everyone feels not to lose your shit whenever something bad happens, and how people walk on eggshells to not to bring out the other guy out. It's shown in the Age of Ultron, where he banishes himself out of the Earth because um, he cannot live with the duality, and basically, you know, yeah, his duality, similar to the similar to the comics, but perhaps more organic in this case. In my opinion, Thor Ragnarok is an important movie for Hulk because not only is he a big green giant for the good stretch of time, they were in the beginning stages of becoming one person. That was until the opening scene of Infinity War. He came out feeling confident only for it to be beaten out of him after after that loss, and 5 years later he accepted his fate. But is he really happy? I guess we'll see what's in store for the Jolly Green Giant. Quick side note: the fact that he seemed the most nonchalant of the original six leads me to believe that there's something more than Banner leads on. Okay, while I'm on the subject of characters with lesser impact, let's talk about Hawkeye and Black Widow. When Hawkeye first gets introduced, he seems like a regular ass guy that happens to be good at archery. I mean, it's unfortunate that he's under the influence of a Mind Stone in the Avengers, but with his characters as well as Black Widow reminds me of the less you know, the better. That also applies to Black Widow, but more on that later. I would be I would label Age of Ultron as a turning point, just not for the MCU, but as characters as well, with a revelation of Hawkeye's family, Black Widow, a hint at her origins, and as a spy. It's sad that she was sacrificed, but if she didn't, Clint wouldn't see his kids grow. So that's kind of like a trade off. I guess you could look at it that. Next up is Thor. I feel like there's distinctive parallels to Tony, but perhaps more devastating. He starts out like an arrogant playboy that's not worthy until he learns his humility. Throughout his first film, he just like basically lost, you know, without his hammer. He desperately needs his hammer, and I would say that's one of his character arcs throughout the his time in the MCU. He feels like this thing is what makes him worthy. hammer is what makes him Thor. But there's this one scene in Thor Ragnarok where he was talking to the ghost of his father, where saying, "Are you Thor, god of hammers? No, you're Thor, god of lightning." Meaning this thing, it just um, just to fit your style, just to fit your aesthetics, but it's not your actual power. You know, um, everything is peachy for him until his mom dies. His girl becomes possessed by the ether and breaks up. His hammer breaks due to his surprise sister and his dad dying. Basically, what I just said. Look, I can go on further, but you get it. In the end, in the end, he still smiles until his greatest failure, not stopping Thanos. Before I segue into talking about Cap, I want to talk about Thor's biggest, greatest scene in the MCU, where he's talking with his mother and says, "No matter how you feel, you'll always be worthy because your state of mind doesn't negate your ultimate worthiness." Finally, there's Cap. His character arc is simple. It's to stand up to bullies. Simple as that line is, it bears a lot of weight for the Star Spangled Avenger. Before being injected with the super soldier serum, he was always had the belief of standing up for the little guy, even if everyone is telling you that's wrong. This line could be echoed back in Civil War when Sharon Carter was giving a speech at Peggy's funeral. Even though the events of that movie became his mantra, helping prove the innocence of Bucky, not without a steep price. The price of the Avengers disbanding because of weakness that allowed them to lose in Infinity War. And circling back to Tony and Steve's relationship can be defined as viewpoints equally reasonable and important, but because of a lack of communication that enabled their failure. And in my opinion, that's what made Endgame such a great send off. Tony getting an honest conversation with his father, Steve doing his duty and going back to live his life with Peggy, Thor unburdening himself as a leader and passing it off to Valkyrie, and becoming a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And Banner, well, like I said earlier, we'll see what comes out of it. I don't think his character arc is done quite yet. Clint is with his family, and unfortunately, that leaves Natasha. But without her sacrifice, none of that would have happened. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. I'm pretty sure I left some stuff out, and I apologize. If you're watching this, then more than likely you can fill in the blanks. I want to say sorry how long it took. I was distracted, kind of took me a while to finish writing the script. But I'm proud that I finally got to write the script. And like I said, there was a lot of details that are probably left out. Probably you're in this comment section right now just typing up an angry ass comment like you left this out, blah 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 blah. But hey, you want to do your spin on it? Go ahead, man. So if you like this video, please give it a like and share. I'm out like a flash, and see you in the next video.